Alright, I can craft your 3,000-word, emotionally charged short story based on Pete Hegseth removed from Congress after Jasmine Crockett revealed this, keeping it heartfelt, inspiring, and narratively rich. Since 3,000 words is long for one response here, I'll give it to you as a single, continuous paragraph narrative, so it's optimized for a 5 to 10 minute spoken narration, with smooth pacing, emotional highs and lows, and a strong final uplift. Here's your story. Pete Hegseth had been in Congress for barely 2 years, but already he was one of the most polarizing figures in Washington. To some, he was a hero who spoke his mind without fear; to others, he was a man whose pride and stubbornness blinded him to the humanity behind the headlines. Pete himself would have told you he was there to fight for the truth, yet deep down, in moments alone, he sometimes wondered whether he was fighting for truth, or simply for the echo of his own voice. Across the aisle sat Jasmine Crockett, a freshman congresswoman from Texas with a firebrand spirit and a reputation for cutting through political theater with unshakable clarity. She was known for her ability to listen, really listen, and for turning personal stories into policy battles. Their worlds collided one humid summer afternoon during a tense committee hearing on veterans' health care, a subject close to Pete's heart as a former Army officer. The hearing began like so many others, with posturing, stats, and interruptions. Pete had prepared for a fight, ready to accuse the other side of neglecting America's heroes. But when Jasmine took her turn, she didn't spar back. Instead, she spoke of her father, a Vietnam veteran who returned home broken in ways invisible to the eye, a man who had smiled through his pain until it consumed him in silence. Her voice trembled as she described watching her father decline because he was too proud, too conditioned to tough it out, to seek help from a system that treated his suffering as an afterthought. Pete felt a flicker in his chest. He wasn't used to hearing emotion from across the aisle without the armor of partisanship. Still, he pressed on with his prepared remarks, until Jasmine did something unexpected. She looked directly at him and said, "Congressman Hegseth, you wear your service like a badge, and I respect that. But are you willing to admit when our fight for veterans has become more about scoring points than saving lives?" The room went silent. Pete froze, because somewhere inside, he knew she wasn't wrong. He had come to Washington to fight for the soldiers he had served with, but somewhere along the way, the fight had turned into a performance. Later that night, he found himself alone in his office, replaying her words. He thought of Staff Sergeant Miller, a buddy from his platoon who had called him 2 years ago, struggling with PTSD. Pete had meant to follow up, to get him help, but politics had swallowed his days. 2 months later, Mill.